Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Kageyama, and I'd like to welcome everyone here to be your own hero. It's it's really hot out here in Southern California. Summer has finally hit us. Today it's like around 96. This weekend's supposed to be over 100, but it's all good. It's part of the seasons, and although 100 degrees is not my favorite. Hey, I'd rather have a 100-degree temperature than be 6 foot under any day. So I'm fine, fine, fine with that. I am so happy with our guest today. Is a young lady named Dianne Jackson, and what I'd like to do at this time is I'd like to dedicate this interview to my sister, who is also named Dianne, who passed away. It'll be 4 years this August. And so, yeah, I just like to dedicate this interview to her as well. And so, what I'd like to do at this time is I'd like to bring on Dianne. Dianne, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and also where you're from.
Dianne Jackson, and firstly, thank you so much for that dedication because that means a lot. I know people's similar names, similar stories can trigger some emotions. So thank you very much for that. I respect what you did there. So appreciate that. I am a Canuck. I live just north of Toronto. We are not 6 feet under snow, even though I know sometimes people think we have snow all over all the time. Where we are parallel, Toronto's pretty much parallel to the northern part of California. So I kind of live in the sunny belt of Canada. And it's probably outside now around 86 degrees. So we're nice
Wow.
and warm too. Yep. But we have humidity in the air. So it's kind of thick. Anyway, I am a cancer survivor, very proud of that. As I said, I have two adult children. I work in the travel industry. I love to travel. I appreciate traveling. I think that traveling actually teaches the world tolerance and patience and appreciation for everything in the world, including different cultures. So that's kind of who I am.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for introducing yourself. Uh, and let's just get into this conversation. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Dianne is very vivacious and energetic, and so this is going to be a great conversation. So why don't we start with uh, at the beginning with your diagnosis? What happened with your situation as far as cancer goes?
So if I can even like go before that, because my story actually starts even well before I was born. My story starts with a family history of breast cancer. My grandmother passed away when she was 36. My aunt passed away when she was 40. My mother passed away when she was 42 and I was 16. The first cousin of my generation who hit 40 was already diagnosed. And we have other girls, and then I am the second female, but certainly not the second in age, but so far the only second girl who was diagnosed with cancer. Obviously, when my mother and my aunt, my grandmother, they were not doing any genetic testing back then. My cousin, who was diagnosed, she had genetic testing, and she did test positive for some people call it BRCA1, some people call it BRCA1, whichever you want to call it. She was tested positive. I, on the other hand, and I did not know that because we did not keep in touch. I, on the other hand, when I was in my late 20s, my family doctor had said, I know you have such a huge family history. There's a hospital here in Toronto that's going to be doing a big study on genetic breast cancer. We'd like to put you in it if you're interested. And so from the age of 28 to 48, I was part of this study. And part of that study was I had the genetic testing. And I tested negative for the BRCA1 or the BRCA2 at that time. They do advancements all the time with genetic studying. So I've actually been tested 3 times to the point where now I've had 18 genes. They had identified 18 genes that cause different types of cancers, not even just breast cancer, but any cancer, but any mutated gene. I've been tested for all of those and I'm negative for everything. So my kids are a little bit woo because they now know they won't get those genes from me. However, here I am, a breast cancer survivor, and I still ended up with breast cancer. And the reason I want to share that story is because everybody always talks about early detection when they talk about breast cancer. And I was always a huge proponent of that. Early detection, make sure you're checking yourself and doing whatever. Well, part of my study, I was in the hospital every 6 months. I was usually getting just hand checked from the doctors, but they were always checking it. I would have mammograms. I had a couple of MRIs. I would have an ultrasound. Let me tell you, I had any bump, anything, and they were checking it. Part of the most difficult part about being part of a study is you get checked for everything. So you go through a lot of scary moments while you're waiting for test results. And that had gone on for, as I said, I was 28. And then at 48, just as they were saying to me, well, Dianne, we think we can probably let you out of the study now. You're past the age. So with genetic breast cancer, usually you tend to get that a little bit earlier. You're getting past the age where we feel you're probably safe. We're going to let you go. We're going to release you. But, obviously they're going to do the last check. We had a mammogram to go. The doctor does a last check. She feels something on my left breast and she says, oh, there's just something here. So, let's get a mammogram. Let's do an ultrasound. Let's check it out just like normal. And for whatever reason, Mark, I'm telling you, it was the one time I wasn't afraid. I thought, I'm safe. There's nothing that's going on. She kind of felt it. I get my mammogram. I go for an ultrasound. And the ultrasound the first technician sees something, goes and gets somebody else, comes back, goes and gets somebody else, come back. Then 3 of them are standing in front of me and they're saying, well, we do see something. We think we need to do a needle biopsy. Now, if anybody on your show has ever had to do a needle biopsy on their breast for a lump, that hurts like a son of a gun. I have to say, I think that was one of the worst pains. It's a needle with an elastic that they pretty much shoot and it just goes poof, poof, and pulls it back out. Hurts quite a bit. And so they did the needle biopsy. They said, we'll get the results. And again, I was not nervous at all. I really felt that this was going to be a false kind of scare like every other time. And I guess that was in January that happened. February, I was called in to get my test results. A sister of mine who was also part of the study, she said, do you want me to go in with the results? And I'm like, no, it's fine. There's nothing going on. And I was so sure there was nothing. And for some reason, as I was walking out the door, and I lived in one condo downtown Toronto, my sister was in another condo, like in another building. And I was walking down the stairs and I buckled. I literally just kind of collapsed and sat down and my stomach just turned and no one had to tell me. And I knew, even no matter how many times I wasn't nervous, I just knew they were going to tell me it was something. And I quickly called my sister because, you're always told have someone with you. And so I called my sister. I said, yeah, I think I need you to come with me. And so we went to the doctors and the doctor called me in and I said to my sister, I'm going to go in first. And if it's nothing, I'll be right back out again. And if it's something, I'll come and get you. So you can hear all the things I'm not going to hear because you're told you don't hear anything. And so doctor sits down. She tells me I have invasive lobular carcinoma. And I said, oh, stop. I need to go get my sister to hear everything because I'm not going to hear what you have to say. And because you're so told, you know what, we are brainwashed sometimes about how we're supposed to react to things. And she said, no, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to tell you. And then you're going to go get your sister and I'm going to tell her again. But this is you and I need you to hear it first. So she told me everything. She told me, what it was, what the difference was, blah, blah, blah. And I ran, got my sister. Sister came in and she knows my sister because of being part of this study. My sister was crying. My sister was upset. I was just sitting there saying, okay, what's next? Let's go on. What do we do next? And she said, well, set you up with a surgeon. We'll set you up. I want to actually get an MRI because the type of cancer that this is, so invasive lobular cancer, usually breast cancer is within the ducts. And if it stays within the ducts, like life insurance won't even pay you out a critical illness. Like it's pretty much like a little biopsy. So a little bit of radiation, sometimes not even radiation, like they don't even consider it life-threatening. Once things start to become invasive, meaning it's gone outside of that duct or outside the lobular, then it becomes a bit more worrisome. So invasive lobular means it's already spread out and the the actual tumor does not go into a pea size. And it's really important, I think, for women to know this, because I've lived with breast cancer part of my life the whole time. I was only looking for peas in my boobs. I was never looking for anything else. And that tumor, invasive lobular, actually the tumor grows in a line. The cells grow in a line. And so even though I had been there for 20 years, that tumor ended up being almost 7 centimeters long when I finally had it taken out, meaning because it's a slow growing one, it took up to 7 years to grow. So I had been going there, had cancer for 7 years, and it was never caught, even through MRIs, even through ultrasounds. It wasn't until the ends and certain areas in that cell, then they start getting a little bit bigger. And that's what was kind of felt, and only to a very trained finger. And then the ultrasound kind of picked something up, and then the MRI caught something on both sides. So they didn't know if it was 2 tumors or if it was 1 tumor. And anyway, needless to say, it was, you're not having just radiation and a little take it out radiation. You have to have a bilateral mastectomy, chemo, radiation, and 10 years of hormonal therapy. So I kind of went from 0 to nothing. And I'm negative for genetic testing. So here I am, still a cancer survivor. My doctor did say to me the first day when we went through it, she said, Dianne, go to the liquor store, get your sister a bottle of wine, calm her down. And she said, because you've got a battle ahead of you. And you have to hear that
what
sometimes.
do you think that because you were in the study, how did that play? Do you I'm because I'm listening to your story, and I'm just wondering, because you're putting all these thoughts in your mind, do you think the study itself played a part in you actually getting cancer,
So
as far as psychologically?
so it's not even just psychologically, and we will never know, right?
Right.
There will be never know. So I don't know if it, and listen, my story was because breast cancer and everybody died, I did not think I was even going to live past 40. So I got married very young. I had my kids, and I didn't realize that I had actually made those decisions thinking that I was not going to live past 40. So I had to do those things beforehand. And so, yes, you do make decisions when something's in there based on that. And I might have told myself, yes, I'm going to have cancer, and that might have happened. The other thing that might have contributed, and I hate saying it, is any type of radiation can cause cancer. So mammograms is a form, MRIs, like those things also put you at risk. And I did talk to the doctors. I mean, because these are some of the things when you're part of a study, they do talk to you about the risk of things. And it's, there's a better good can outweigh the bad. It's the same as when you're on a prescription, right? It can cause this, but the good it's going to do is going to outweigh those risks. And so for me, I felt the risk of being exposed to those tests over those years. I actually felt very relieved, because I thought if I ended up with cancer, it would be caught. I thought maybe more than 7 years later, but anyway, I didn't think it was going to take 7 years. I figured that it would have been an itty bitty little pea, and then they would just snip it out, and that would have been it. But yeah, so there's 2 things that might have contributed to that.
I'm always fascinated by the psychology of cancer, and the things surrounding the mind, because I am so convinced that your mindset in a cancer journey is so critical. I mean, it
Oh
is.
boy, is it ever.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Why do you feel that way?
So I do believe your mindset, what you put out in the universe, you get back, that sometimes it's as simple as that. Now, I don't mean it as bad karma, good karma. If you did something bad when you were 5, you're not getting cancer now. I don't believe in something like that. But I do believe the way you view something, the way you look at it, the outcome of it, the way you view it is the way it is. And if you aren't ready, listen, going through cancer, no matter which cancer it is, if you, especially if you're having to go through radiation, chemotherapy, that's a lot of garbage in your body. And if your mind's not ready for that battle, I don't know how you're going to survive that battle. And it doesn't mean you have to wear a smile every day. I do not mean that. And it's okay to sometimes say, this sucks, or cancer. It does suck. If anyone tries to tell you it doesn't, they have to be lying, or they're just loving pain or something. It is not what it does. Especially when you start losing, I'm a female. I lost very prominent female parts to my body, what it does to you emotionally. And I remember the first time I put on a shirt where it wasn't, obviously I had my surgery, I had, certain shirts on, but the first time I put a shirt to go back to the hospital for something, and because I had an immediate exchange for reconstruction, which was a big mistake for me. But anyway, the first time I put that shirt on and how it fit, I broke down and I cried, and I didn't think it was going to bother me that much. And when they told me, listen, I don't think I'm a vain person, but when they told me I was going to lose my hair, I really, I actually had my brother-in-law in the room with me at the time. Again, I always dragged somebody into a doctor to hear what I needed to hear, even though I didn't like half the time, and I understood exactly what they said. When they said, okay, it's radiation and chemo, and we're going to do the chemo first. And I went, chemo? And she said, and yes, you're going to lose your hair, and you're going to gain weight, and you're going to, and I was, I think I was more devastated being told I was going to lose my hair, even though I know that's what happens, than I was the day that I found out I had cancer. And maybe because I had accepted it. And earlier, Mark, you and I had talked a little bit about sometimes doctors kind of tell you what a treatment plan is before they get pathology. And I really wish they wouldn't do that, because I was told my treatment plan was going to be a little lumpectomy and then some radiation. So in my mind, I already didn't have to worry about all that other stuff, because I was only going to need a lumpectomy and radiation. And then when they got the pathology and realized how large it is, it moved me, an extra stage up. And all of a sudden we're going to zap it with all this radiation. But now you need 5 rounds of chemotherapy and all these things are going on. I think my mind, it wasn't there yet. I didn't get a chance to get there. And I wish that doctors wouldn't do that. I wish they would have told me, okay, here's all the treatments you might have to have, get the pathology. And then if it ends up being that, well, my mind would already be there. I would have already accepted that. Or the good news is maybe it was just a lumpectomy and radiation, and then I get to celebrate because it wasn't going to be as bad as I thought it was going to be. Because I do think people, when they have to get their mind to where they're going, they have to hear, and they want to be part of the decision of what that treatment is. And so when you're kind of taken off guard of what that treatment is, especially if you're caught up because you're going to lose your hair, and that's so silly. I probably was more upset about my hair because it was misaligned what I was upset about, because you do grab on to sometimes other things when you're really scared of the big thing.
That makes complete sense to me. I know exactly what you're talking about. That diagnosis stage is such a critically important point in a person's life, really. Because that diagnosis can change a person's whole world. One day they're going about life, doing what they're doing, and then somebody tells you, you have cancer. And if you've been told that you have stage 4 cancer, or 3, a serious type of cancer, it could really, really hurt a person mentally. And
Yeah.
because that's part of, I have a lot of pet peeves with the way the doctors do things, and the way they tell people. And I wish that these doctors would have more compassion and be more human at that time than a lot of them are. Um,
I agree, and you know, that is the one benefit that and I would be remiss if I did not thank the doctors, because I got to know my clinic, because I was part of this study. Um, there's they get to know you as a person, and they also got to know that we all thought I was on my way out, not deeper in, if you know what I mean. I was supposed to go the exit door. I wasn't supposed to go that door number 2 to the, the chemo machine and the chemo lounge. I wasn't going to the cocktail lounge. I was actually going to the bar. So come on. And so I would be remiss, but I do know in most cases, that's not the situation. Mine is unique because I was part of that study, but most people don't have that. And even though I was part of that study, I still ended up with the situation of that. Here's what you'll have. Here's where here's probably what you need to have. And then the pathology, no, here's what it really is, what it looks like. And, there was a long time I was, diagnosed in January, and then, well, February, I got the results. I was diagnosed, and May they did the surgery because they were doing a whole bunch of tests. And I will knock on wood, thank God my doctor was persistent on waiting to do the MRI, because otherwise the doctor would have just done a lumpectomy and a radiation to that one lump, because they couldn't see, on the mammograms, they didn't see anything else. It wasn't until that MRI said, oh, there's actually a spot way over on the other side here, and they did a biopsy of that, realized that's also invasive lobular, but they did not even know that that was the same tumor. They thought they were two separate little pieces. It was the same tumor when they got the pathology, and that's where things started to change. But in that 5 months, if I had thought I was going to be doing the whole gamut, I would have had 5 months to adjust to that. I maybe would have bought some nicer wigs, or bought some nice hats or something in that meantime. Like then you kind of prep yourself and you go through it. Just like the day I started chemo, my chemo was in the afternoon, and I ran to the hairdresser first thing in the morning. I said, cut my hair off short. So I had it long, and then I said, cut it off short and layered, like a much shorter look, because I thought it was going to be much easier if I did it in stages. And then they told me after that first treatment, they said, by about day 10, you will notice. And I was actually up north at a friend's place at a pool party for the weekend, and I had brought a scarf with me, and I was lying on the pillow. And when I got up from the pillow, there was like clumps of hair on the pillow. And when I touched my head, it doesn't come out nicely. It does not, it doesn't do it
not
beautifully. It comes out like clumps, and it just makes it stringy, and it's a terrible thing. And I just thought, oh my God. And I quickly put my scarf on so nobody saw there. And I was actually heading to another friend's house, and I said to him, will you shave my head? Like, will you please just get rid of it all? And that was the only thing. I took control of it. I did not want that straggly. I didn't, as soon as I saw how it was going, just shave the whole thing off. And I proceeded to shave it all off, and the clumps stayed on the lawn for like 3 months. It was kind of weird, to tell you the truth, but.
So I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
How has your perception of cancer changed from before having cancer to going through the whole gamut to where you are today?
I'm probably, so losing my mother young made me a little bit of, yes, life happens. And I am a little bit more practical that way. I think what it did is it made me a little bit matter of fact about it. And I don't know if that makes sense. Someone once said to me as I went through it, they said, "You're the only person I know that treated the whole thing as if you were being treated like you had a cold or something, like you went through it and you did it." That is, I think, part of my personality. And I think it's partly what gives me the strength to forge ahead and to move. I think the biggest thing is I probably have more hope now than I did beforehand. I feel that there's a lot more resilience that people can bring to the fight. I think that more people can survive it. I don't feel a diagnosis of cancer automatically means death. And no matter what cancer it is, I, at the same time, I said it to you earlier, I think sometimes you have to read between the lines of what a doctor says, and you have to be realistic to what a doctor says. And when the doctors have kind of given up on something, you have a choice then to either fight and go. And I don't believe, and this, I remember I said you can trigger something and it can bring a tear. I do believe that if you lose the battle on earth, you actually won, because cancer killed itself. It's only killed its host, but it can't survive either. So meaning, if I have cancer and I die, I believe my spirit goes on. That's my spiritual belief. The cancer did not get to. It killed its host. It killed the body that I was in, but it didn't kill me. So I still believe, when they say they lost the battle, they didn't. They might have lost this battle, but they didn't actually lose the war, because the cancer is the one that's dead. My spirit gets to go on.
So what do you do? I mean, you've survived a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So where is your thought process, and what do you do to advocate for cancer patients?
Well, so I do offer, I am always surprised. I did not reach out to other people when I went through it. It was just, I had such a great circle of support around me, and I talked to people around me. But not everybody has that. And I have had many people say to me, "Will you talk to my friend? Will you talk to somebody else?" The clinic that I was at, I've put my name in to say if anybody needs to talk to somebody. But I'm also very careful to say to people that and I hate the word journey, Mark, but I'm going to say the word journey here. My journey will never be the same as somebody else's. And it can't be, because I'm not the same as somebody else. And even if we have the same diagnosis, we're not going to have it exactly the same. My internal thinking and belief system is different, but so is my support system different. So are all my circumstances different. So even if we had the same treatment, the same cancers, it's still going to look and be a little bit different. But I will talk to people, and I do it in a very honest way. A junior high friend of mine reached out to me last summer after not talking for years, and he said, "Do you have a few minutes?" And I'm like, "Sure." And I was kind of worried, because most people call me when they talk about breast cancer, so I was worried that he was going to tell me something about his wife. And he actually told me that he had just been diagnosed with tonsil cancer. And first thing out of my mouth was, "Damn, don't you wish you had those taken out?" And then he just kind of laughed. We kind of joked around about it. And throughout the whole process, I would just check in, and all of a sudden we were talking. And we got together just a little while ago, and he's doing well. He had major radiation. He still has his struggles. It looks like his scan, he's still clear. And he said, "Your candor, your sense of humor, but you actually being honest to say this part that sucks," he said, "that's probably what helped me the most." And I think that's where I will give people, it's okay to recognize that it's not easy. It's okay to have bad days, and you're going to have bad days. listen, I lost a friend because they just didn't know how to deal with me when it came through. And I don't think I'm the only one. And I don't think anybody ever wants to talk about that. But some people don't know how to talk to people who are going through it. And that's their problem. That's not yours, by the way. That's their problem. And someone once said to me, who was a cancer survivor, Dianne, don't have any expectations from anybody else, because they're dealing with how they want to deal with it. And, your family deals with it, how they feel with it. So I think that's how I give back. I also give back because I am a huge participant in, well, it started off as the End Cancer Walk. It's at Princess Margaret. Margaret is a worldwide cancer hospital out of Toronto. And they used to have a 60K walk. So over the years, I've done it a couple times, the 60K with a team, and we call ourselves the Healthy Hooters. You should see our logo. It's amazing. It's an owl with looks like two boobs, but it's their eyes. If you can kind of picture that, it's very cool. And so we do this walk and we raise money. And up to this point, we're probably at around the 100,000 mark that we've raised for cancer and different cancers. And then this year I'm doing the CIBC walk for breast cancer specifically, and it's only a 5K. I think I'm giving up on a 60K. It's only a 5K, which is my everyday walk. So I think I'm okay.
That is great. That is really, I just love hearing stories about people who, go through the process and are willing to give back, because it just makes the community so much stronger, and it makes it strengthens the whole of the cancer community, which we always say you never want to join the community, but once you do, you realize
it's a club.
what it is. It really is. It's like being in a fraternity or a sorority, and once you realize that you're in it, you say, wow, these people are phenomenal.
These
Absolutely
people,
phenomenal.
yeah. And there's some people that never want to talk about it. They never, I mean, I'm at a point right now where I don't want it to define me, who I am, but I also want to make it part of my story. And I have no problem making it part of my story and who I am. And it is part of my brand, because if people know that, then I think people are willing to reach out, and if they need assistance or if they need help. But you know how motorcycles, see them driving down the street when they're driving and they pass another motorcycle, they always do this like sideways wave. I'm sure they do it down in the US too. There's always this little, out the side of their motorcycle, they put their hand out and just kind of wave to each other. I think we need to come up with like a cancer, so that we don't have to say anything. We just do something with our hands, and then we know we're part of the club.
I'll leave that one to you to come up with a handshake or a gesture, right, or a sign or whatever it may be.
Well, if it was the sign to cancer, I'd have to put up my middle finger and say F you cancer, but we won't go there.
Okay. So what would you like to leave with our audience as far as the final thought goes? What you've learned, what would you like to share with everyone?
I think that I would like to say, handle it your way. Be you. Be true to who you are. Some people want to lock themselves away. That would not be my recommendation, because I feel you get a lot of energy from positive people around you. It's scary, and it's okay to be scared. And as your body transforms, and it will change as you go through things, it will change because of them having to do opsies, whatever that opsy is, whatever it has to be taken off or taken out or whatever. It can change internally, it can change externally, and it can change you mentally. And be okay with that change, but don't hide who you are. Be who you are. And a positive mindset. I can't stress again. I mean, I'll always say being positive does not mean wearing a smile every day. It does not mean you're always happy and you're go lucky or whatever. It just means you know that you have a chance to fight it.
That is so awesome. Great advice. And I just love hearing different perspectives from people who've gone through cancer, because, you know, we all kind of like start from a different place, but to get to that place where, you know, we've made it and we've survived, you know, there's so many different ways to get there.
Yeah.
And that's where the individuality and the personality of that person going through the cancer journey is so important. And you brought out, I think, to sum it up, be yourself through the cancer journey. And I believe, and I think you would have to agree, that it would serve you well.
It certainly does. I mean, you can clearly tell I like to make jokes, and during the chemo lounge, I would make jokes. Some people probably thought it was inappropriate, but you know what? That's who I am, and that's just be true to who you are.
Absolutely. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Dianne.
Mark, thank
I
you for having me
enjoyed
on.
the conversation. I enjoyed your insight, your input, and your knowledge. And thank you so much for sharing your
You're more
thoughts
than
on your
welcome.
cancer journey.
Anytime, Mark.
All right, I'm going to take you up on that.
Okay.
And so, how I always like to end each interview is to share a couple of positive quotes. And these are from Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. And the first one is, empty out old dead thoughts and be reborn in mind and spirit. That experience will make you come alive. And the second one is, thinking positively about your abilities tends to release positive mental forces that produce effective action. Thank you so much for joining us here at To Be Your Own Hero. Please subscribe, like, make a comment in the comment section of the video, and also ring that notification bell. And make the most out of every single day. Life is so precious and so awesome that every single day is important. Every single day, every single hour, every single minute, and every single breath. Have a fantastic week and be blessed. And we will see you next week on To Be Your Own Hero. Thank you very much.